Well, hello and welcome back to the Lamppost Listener. My name is Daniel.
I'm Phil.
And this is a podcast where we chronicle transcendent truth by traveling further up and further into the classic works of children's literature.
This is Season 10, Episode 4, The Goblins, which covers Chapter 4 of The Hobbit.
The Goblins. This feels a little bit like some familiar territory to us. We just spent a lot of time talking about goblins last year.
And a lot of time in caves.
That's true. Yeah, you know what? Can we actually start today with our Enchanted Epistle? Yeah, that section of the podcast. Is that what we call it? Are they called sections? That's not what we call them.
Modules.
The modules.
If you want to really lose your audience, you call things modules.
Has there ever been a good thing that's given a module? You ever done something you're like, that was really worth my time, that module?
No.
You know, I took driver's ed as a module. That's probably why I'm not joking. No, not like behind the wheel. I took the actual driver's ed, and this was in like 2005. The internet was not new, but also was not. No, that's not right. 2007. I don't know when it would have been.
You took driver's ed way too early. I think your parents were messing with you.
You think they just
they loaded up this new site called Google Video.
They're like,
you thought you were learning how to drive.
We'll just make him pretend like he's in it. No, I had to do it. It was in the DMV website and stuff, and you went on because we've talked before that I did PE online, so I could do more band classes and more humanities classes. This was the guy who obviously was going to turn out to have a podcast on children's literature. How can I do less PE?
It sounds like you're a world famous child actor.
Oh yeah,
just ahead of the curve.
Oh man. Well, so let's do our segment here, the Enchanted Epistles. I want to start with that because it actually has to do with the name Goblin, which we're going to say a lot today. And our letter, it's a Tolkien letter. It's letter 144, a letter that he wrote to a woman named Naomi Mitchison, who was kind of reading the proofs for The Lord of the Rings. And the letter is dated April of 1954. And I'm not reading. It's quite a long letter because this woman had written back with a ton of questions as she's kind of going through the proofs for, which I would have believed, I guess, April 54 is right before, that's the year that Fellowship comes out. So it must be kind of getting close to the deadline there. Mm-hmm. But he writes a bunch of things back, and she asked a question, presumably about the word orc. And I want to read what Tolkien says here. Orcs, the word is, as far as I am concerned, actually derived from Old English orc demon, but only because of its phonetic suitability. Then that was all in parentheses. Orcs are nowhere clearly stated to be of any particular origin. But since they are servants of the dark power and later of Sauron, neither of whom could or would produce living things, they must be corruptions. They are not based on direct experience of mine, but, I suppose, a good deal to the goblin tradition. Goblin is used as a translation in The Hobbit, where orc only occurs once, I think, especially as it appears in George MacDonald. Again, he has a couple of parenthetical things here that he says, but a good deal to this is due with a good deal to the goblin tradition, especially as it appears in George MacDonald, except for the soft feet, which I never believed in. I love the use of "I never believed in."
Yeah,
that's so great.
Wow.
So I just wanted to start one thing that I've known this now for a few years, but I would say even when we started the podcast, if you were to ask me about orcs and goblins and Uruk-hai in Tolkien's works, I would have said they were all three different things. But as I've done a little bit of reading, and maybe many other listeners are very familiar with this, goblin and orc is just used pretty much interchangeably, and in other places, like Tolkien is saying here, he uses the word goblin to be the word that will also mean orc when you get to the Lord of the Rings or even the Silmarillion.
Oh, okay. I was getting orcs and Uruk-hai mixed up.
No,
which gives you a sense of where I am with my legendary.
Well, yeah, the Uruk-hai are the ones that are made by Sauron, right? He grows them in the pits underneath Orthanc,
yes.
Right?
I just got them mixed up with orcs.
Oh yeah.
When I was reading The Hobbit, because it's not as clear.
Yeah, they're the ones who also can be out in the sunlight and all those things, whereas these orcs or goblins are very much further below. And there really are a lot of, having just read, The Princess and the Goblin last year, they really have a lot of similarities. There are a lot of comical elements in this chapter. They're not like maybe not comical, more lighthearted. The goblins are like, we're gonna kill you and eat you, and they're whipping them, but they're also like, oh, they're kind of fun. At the same time, kind of like the goblins who were going to eat Curdy are also like, oh no, the queen's pretty fun. She wears funny shoes. Like those, they kind of have a little bit of those same sensibilities.
This whole book so far, I'm a few chapters ahead at this point, and I've read it a couple years ago, The Hobbit. But I'm impressed with how fun it is. It seems much more lighthearted and less serious.
Oh, very much so, right? I think we've been having it. It's also like at this point, every chapter is kind of its own little episode too.
Yeah.
Even a short rest has them. Oh, it really is a rest from the adventure so far.
Yeah.
And so this one it does feel, this is probably actually the first time where we have a chapter that doesn't have a very definitive ending, right? So this chapter, I know you'll do the summary in just a moment, does end with Bilbo being knocked out and falling off of, I think it's Owen's back. Is that who is?
Yeah.
Is that whose back he's on?
Dory.
Or is it Nori? Dory. It's one.
Dory.
One of those. I don't know. It's Gimli, I think.
Actually,
I don't know.
I had a moment where I thought maybe I didn't write the summary because we had planned to record a week ago, and I
forgot.
I had my summary
Did
ready
you?
to go,
Yeah.
and I opened it up. And I'm like, oh shoot, this just ends in the middle of the action, and then I remembered, oh yeah, chapter 4 ends with him falling.
Just ends like that, which makes me even more excited for next episode too. We're gonna have Gollum involved, but we're not there yet. Why don't we talk actually just about chapter 4? That is what we do here on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Would you like to do our summary?
Yes, a summary of chapter 4. A thunderstorm, unlike anything Bilbo has ever experienced, rages overhead, and seeking shelter, the entire party camps in a nearby cave. That night, Bilbo wakes up just as the last of the ponies disappear into a crack in the wall and a horde of goblins spill out. Outnumbered, the entire group of dwarves and the Hobbit are snatched away. The Great Goblin interrogates them, and after quickly becoming convinced that they are enemies, calls for them all to be attacked. They are immediately interrupted by the lights going out and sparks flying, and the Great Goblin dying at Gandalf's sword. Another fight ensues as they try to escape the cave, and at the last moment, Bilbo falls from Dory's shoulders as the swiftest goblins attack him from behind.
All right. I will say we've tried not to talk about the movies, whether it be the cartoon or the Peter Jackson trilogy here. This chapter, I have a really hard time not actually picturing a lot of what happens. Sometimes you read a book enough that I can read about the trolls and it feels I'm not just picturing what happens in the movie, but for this one, a lot of the imagery, especially with the Great Goblin, does come to mind when I think of that. Is that just a me thing?
I saw them once in 3D.
That's right, and you've never seen them again.
I haven't seen them since then.
That is probably the right decision.
But I definitely want to, especially when you said the first 20 minutes are so good.
The first hour is pretty good.
Oh, the first hour.
Because the Unexpected Journey movie is 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And it gets to, we're almost at the end of the movie, which is insane.
I do not want to see 9 hours of Hobbit content.
Yeah, I mean they're really bad movies.
But I don't remember them being particularly fun. I do remember kind of yawning in like the gazillionth chase down some cave or something. Yeah. But I am interested from how did they design stuff? What did the characters look like? Because it's been so long since I've seen them that I'm curious what were the choices they made?
Yeah.
How did things look?
You know what? At this point, it might be. I don't know when this will air, but it might be possible for people to go actually find out on Dancing Lawn over at Patreon, because we will cover the movies as we get through them.
All 9 hours.
Their chapters. We will, and I think we're going to watch the extended editions of the movie, so it's going to be even longer. So, yay. All right, Phil. Well,
I just want people to know that every now and then this show does feel like work. And sometimes it's when we're watching the
Princess and the Goblin on YouTube felt like work.
Yep.
Earlier this year. That one felt like work. Didn't I fall asleep during that one, or did you fall asleep? One of us fell asleep for some of it. What?
You fell asleep before recording.
Well, tonight I actually did, but not while you were here. That was before you came over. Well, we usually it's like 10 o'clock that we're recording now. It took a little till 8 p.m. snooze.
Yeah.
Where does this start at, Phil? Tell me about this journey into the mountains and the thunder battle that ensues.
And they're all over the place. They've climbed out of the valley. They've left the last homely house miles behind. And Bilbo points out that summer's getting on down below because they're up pretty high. Haymaking is going on and picnics, and I think everybody's kind of longing for that.
Yeah, here's something I want to ask you. This chapter, just like a little bit in chapter 2 did as well, it really it highlights the reality that the dwarves really are kind of a ragtag group of really, in many ways, vengeance seekers over their own homeland, wanting to gain back the Lonely Mountain. But, for all the grief they give Bilbo, in fact, at the very end of this chapter, as Bilbo's falling off, I can't remember who you already told us who the dwarf is, but it's actually this is when he's on Bomber's back. When Bilbo says something, oh why did I ever leave my hobbit hole? Bomber he kind of mocks him, and he's like, why did I ever bring a wretched little hobbit on a treasure hunt? And it's a little honestly unclear how much he is frustrated and how much he isn't. I think it seems like he actually is pretty frustrated because Tolkien's words are that poor Bomber, who was fat and staggered along with the sweat dripping down his nose in the heat and terror, is the one who's saying this. Mm-hmm. But for all the grief they give Bilbo, they're really not much better at this than he is. I mean, they have a little bit more experience, but even their own minds, Bilbo's sitting there thinking, oh, we're up here in the mountains and down below, people are really enjoying this. You just read some of that. Well, the very next sentence is, and the others were thinking equally gloomy thoughts. Yeah. Although when they had said goodbye to Elrond in the high hope of a midsummer morning, they had spoken gaily of the passage of the mountains and of riding swift across the lands beyond. It goes on to tell us they kind of actually imagined they'd be getting there much sooner, and a couple sentences later, only Gandalf had shaken his head and said nothing. So their own expectations are off.
It dispels this illusion that they are experienced. They do this all the time. They're just bringing a hobbit along for this particular mission. Mm-hmm. This is much more of a Gandalf got this group together.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of discount and available.
It's interesting. You think about, so I'm reading, just kind of for fun at nighttime before I go to bed, I'm reading through Lord of the Rings. And by the time the Fellowship gets together, you have the most important people, right? There's other more important people in Middle Earth, but of the 9, this is a kind of funny thing, of the 9 that set out, 7 of them are royalty of some kind, or at least Boromir's, his father's the steward, which technically I guess isn't royalty, but he's a high up aristocrat. I don't know exactly what you'd call it. And then 1 is just a blue collar gardener, and 1 is kind of a god angel thing. So it's all very, and everyone else, Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, right, are of kind of royal lineage. You have Frodo, Pippin, and Merry, who all have kind of very important family trees. So you have a lot of really important people. Bilbo does have this kind of Took, and not kind of, he does have this Tookish side of him, which is connected to the old Took, quite important. And all the dwarves are somewhat related, obviously very much Thorin and then Fili and Kili. But this group of people feels much more random. This is the people, that you go send on the quest versus these are the people that you go to destroy the One Ring to rule them all.
Yeah.
I love that about The Hobbit. I so much...
And I'm glad that both exist at the same...
Yeah.
We can have both. We can have this fun version with the ragtag group.
Well, let's talk about why this works as not a prequel, but why this works as a prelude to a work like The Lord of the Rings, because I'm convinced that even someone as talented as Tolkien, if he had tried to go back later and write this same story, it would have been 10 times worse.
Yeah.
It works as
similar to when you have 3 movies come out and then you try to go back and make
exactly, because this story is so much less important than Lord of the Rings, but it works because it came out first. And because it was written first, it was in many ways conceived of first. Even when Tolkien's got other ideas in the back of his head, this is the one that actually comes to fruition.
Can you name a really good prequel?
No, we've talked about this before.
Yeah. I can't I can't think of one.
I can't think of a time, that a prequel came out. I was like, oh, that was really not just was that needed, which is never the case, but also that was great. That was better than the original of whatever, whether a book, whether it's a movie, TV. I can't think of it. I can't think of a prequel.
There was some series recently that maybe you can help me remember what this was. There was a series recently that they came out with a prequel, and they made it clear, or the director made it clear, that this isn't us making up this story now that the first one's been successful. We made this up first in order to write the first movie. And that's about as close as I think you can get.
This is the new Wonka movie you're talking about? There's no way that was good, right? That looked so bad.
Yeah, well, you have to be careful judging stuff you haven't actually seen, but I have not chosen to sit down and watch it.
All right, well, let's get back to the chapter here. So these dwarves who are longing for their home as well, or longing for just anything other than being up here in the mountains, are there with Gandalf and Bilbo. And they do eventually make it into a cave. But the reason they're looking for a cave is that they are stuck in this horrible thunder battle. And so, as I mentioned, that one of the things I was thinking of was the movie, because the way they do this in the movies, these I guess these giant rock monsters fighting each other. But one of the ways that some people really actually interpret this here in the book, and Corey Olsen is one who does this as well, is it's almost more of it's almost like these kind of rock monsters or rock trolls, whatever they are here, are more like just playing, and they're roughhousing in a way that kind of, which I like more than just, there's this big fight. It's almost like, these giant things, they're roughhousing. It puts you into such a minuscule perspective. You're here down there suffering in the midst of this horrible storm. And they're goofing off up there, not realizing. It's like my kids wrestling on the carpet to a bunch of ants. You know what I mean? They'd be like, wow, this huge battle's going on. They're like, no, they're just goofing off together, right? So all of this is occurring. It puts Bilbo and the dwarves' quest into this much smaller perspective. So many things are happening in Middle-earth that don't affect them, or that are even much larger than them.
It has a really interesting impact on the scale of the story. We both recently went to the beach, separate weeks, in almost the same place. We were
we go to the same beach.
We were time neighbors. But I sat in front of the ocean, and it seemed I've had a hard time at work recently, just the past year and a half. And but I sat in front of the ocean, and I looked at how large it was, and the scale is staggering. If you
squint
enough,
really hard, you can see Portugal. I actually don't know if that's across from.
Well, our beach faces south, and
Antarctica. Then sorry, my bad.
So you see some of the islands, and then you see some of the bigger islands.
Yeah, it really does. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh, that means a lot. That explains a lot. I've only started going to this beach 2 years ago. It means a lot to me. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for telling me.
This is,
but at that same scale, it put all of my issues at work in perspective. This is relatively small compared to this giant world that we have.
Yeah.
And this has a similar effect of it. We were so zoomed in on our companions, and then you zoom back out because there's this bigger thing happening, and it is affecting them. But it also, the people wrestling with each other and throwing these rocks, they couldn't care less about what's going on down below.
Yeah. Well, what is going on down below is that this Thorin's company are being pelted with horrible rain. It's dangerous out there, and they're just looking for some kind of shelter. Fili and Kili are sent off as the younger dwarves. They're just the ones who get the jobs that nobody else wants.
They're only 50, so they have sharper eyes.
Yeah, they get sent off, and they do find a dry cave. Now Gandalf is very clear. Have you thoroughly explored it? he asks them, right? He's like, we need to make sure. He knows that caves in the mountain, as Tolkien says here, were seldom unoccupied. But even though it's pretty clear they couldn't have explored the entire thing, everyone is so wet and so uncomfortable, they're willing to go inside of this cave. And here's what Tolkien says when they get in there. The wind was howling and the thunder still growling, and they had a business getting themselves and their ponies along. Still, it was not very far to go, and before long they came to a big rock standing out into the path. If you stepped behind, you found a low arch in the side of the mountain. There was just room to get the ponies through with a squeeze when they had been unpacked and unsaddled. As they passed under the arch, it was good to hear the wind and the rain outside instead of all about them, and to feel safe from the giants and their rocks. They get inside this cave, and Gandalf has a little bit of a light from, I believe, I don't have it right in front of me, his wand, which I do enjoy that we're calling it his wand here. And he won't let them light a fire to dry their clothes off, so they kind of put on some clean clothes or some warmer, dry clothes, and then just lay out their wet clothes. Those are not getting
Just
dry.
roll it on the floor.
Those are not getting remotely dry.
Like, all I'm saying is, if you can disintegrate goblins into smoke, you could probably dry some clothes. Why won't he dry their clothes for them?
Is he? Maybe he doesn't want to. Like he's like, look, you guys are complaining a little too much. It's good for you. It's good for you to be a little uncomfortable. You know. You think this is a character moment for the dwarves, or if this is Gandalf really is afraid that he's going to attract something else to them?
Oh, that's a good point. If you do a little too much magic, maybe it has a side effect or something.
Yeah, or like even if can someone from the outside see the warm glow of the fire and be, oh, let's go see what's closer. Maybe that, there's a couple of different reasons why, but yeah. I also like the idea that Gandalf is just helping them grow.
Honestly, I do think that's part of it.
Really?
Well, there have been several times, especially in Tolkien's work, where I wonder, why can't you just do this? And kind of the most famous one is, why can't the Eagles just speed things up? There's probably a reason. And a big reason is it wouldn't be as much fun. You wouldn't get the whole story. But this is an example I've thought of recently. We can do so many incredible things with medicine, but we can't fix everything. And it actually takes a lot of work. And that's what I keep coming back to with some of this magic stuff. Perhaps there's a great effort behind stuff. Maybe having a light at the end of your wand is easy, but then shielding and masking a fire would take a lot of effort, or it's just not a thing. Similar to, like, we can cure all kinds of stuff pretty easily. You can just take some pills and deal with these things that used to completely wreck generations. But then we also we haven't cured tuberculosis. And that one's been around for a while. So it's not like once you solve this, it applies to everything.
Okay.
And so I'm assuming in this world that that's what's happening with some of Gandalf's magic.
Yeah,
he can do some things, other things aren't as possible.
I've always enjoyed that Gandalf's magic has very confusing rules to it. It's what the nerds call a soft magic system. It's not a lot of. It's not like reading, Wheel of Time, or reading some of like Sanderson's other stuff where you get like all these hard magic systems where you know exactly. It's like, yeah, it's kind of just there. He just does it, Yeah, I love it.
We need both.
Well, they go into the cave and they all fall asleep eventually. And Bilbo has a dream. It's a second dream that he's had, right? He has that dream at the very end of chapter 1. And he now has a dream that actually turns out to be maybe not. It's unclear. Is this sleep paralysis? Does that ever happen to you? Do you ever wake up and get this? Or is it just me?
I think it's happened twice.
This happened to me. Like, this happens to me maybe, I don't know, like every other month.
Oh, wow.
But only for like 3 seconds. Or, sometimes it's longer, more like 10 seconds. But like, I'll wake up and Anna usually gets up before me because she likes to run in the morning. And I'll like see Anna moving around. But I'm like, I can't move my body yet. And it takes, and then like 5 seconds or so passes and it does happen.
I imagine that there are all these little versions of me running things like a machine inside. And when that kind of thing happens, it's, we weren't expecting you to.
We forgot to turn on the rest of the thing.
Hold on. We'll get you. Okay. And Okay, now you can
Yeah,
move.
turn the
we had
limbs button
We
on.
had the paralysis chemical going like
Yes.
full speed because we thought we had 40 more minutes.
Well, Bilbo wakes up fast enough to realize that the goblins or something, is taking their ponies and attacking them. But he does scream. And again, this is actually, and Corey Olsen.
Well, he yells.
He yells. Corey Olsen points this out, which is, I think, really important. He points this out in exploring J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, where this is actually the very first time, albeit in a very minor way, the very first time that Bilbo actually has a positive contribution to the journey. I mean, he really doesn't have much to offer with the trolls. In fact, many of the problems he causes. But here, this loud yell is quick enough. It's quick enough for Gandalf to, one, kill some of the goblins, but also disappear. It allows him to come back much later. We can maybe assume that had Bilbo not yelled, Gandalf also would have been caught sleeping, and they might not have been able to be.
Would have ended right here.
Yeah, it could have
Been a very different story.
Maybe I'm sure. Look, we're too cool to know these kind of answers. I'm sure the Tolkien nerds out there know. Does Gandalf have to have his staff to do magic?
I don't think so.
He doesn't have to have. What's it for then?
He's got.
This is just like it looks.
Are we going to go through all of the gear that you have that you don't actually?
What's the top one that comes to your mind?
Fountain pens.
That's fair. All right.
My favorite thing is when you bought number 233, and
No,
you're like,
I have like
this
30.
This one's a cheaper one, so I can just toss it in my bag. I'm like, dude, you could literally put a different pen in your bag and lose it every day until November.
I'd be fine.
And you wouldn't be fine.
But see, the thing
But then
is,
when I went to buy new podcasting equipment, you literally said to me, "What's wrong with the stuff we have?" And I'm like, "Nothing, man. What's wrong with the pens you have?"
I look, the pens, that's my own money. The other stuff, that is the podcast's hard-earned money, and I want to use it in a way that respects the people who give us $2 a month. Or $5. There'll be all
Or
25.
$5 or
Yeah, we'll
25.
thank those people in just a minute. But look, we can buy maybe a new microphone. We'll talk about it. I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, does he need his like? Let's say that the goblins had come in, they'd taken his staff away really quickly, or they thought it was just a piece of wood. Would he be able to do any magic at all?
I think so.
I think he can.
You
right?
have to have backups.
Yeah, maybe it makes it stronger having the wand there, the big staff.
Oh yeah, what's the system in Harry Potter? Can you do? You have to be able to do something.
No,
because they don't have wands, and then they're doing stuff like
they
making
do
glass
stuff.
disappear.
I think I don't know.
Maybe it's way harder to train.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
I know that Thor's hammer was never the source of its power. It was to help him control his power.
That's true. All right, so moving deeper into the mountains, the goblins come about, and we actually are not told much about the goblins. I love the way that Tolkien does this, actually with a lot. And actually, think about this. 3 chapters in a row, we've been introduced to kind of new creatures, or actually really 4 chapters in a row, because you have first chapter, it's the dwarves, then the trolls, then the elves, and now here the goblins. And each time they're introduced, we see some of their action and interactions before we actually get an aside from the narrator to tell us about them. And even we didn't get this with the trolls necessarily. Maybe they don't know how to do this. But with all of these, we also get a song. The elves give us a song. The dwarves gave us a song. And now here we have a song from the goblins, which is the most violent song so far, as they talk about what it's like to go down to Goblin Town. We get words like clap, snap,
Pinch nab.
Pinch, nab, grip.
Ho ho, my lad.
Well, that one's a little bit less. That one's a little bit more friendlier at the end. I like that. But hammer and tongs, knocker and gongs, swish, smack, whip, crack, all these things, and all of these words are actually what's actually being done to the dwarves as they're going down. They're brought all the way down, and I want to spend a little bit of time here after we arrive to what we believe must be Goblin Town. Is the ponies are taken away. They are probably eaten by the goblins, and then they are brought before the Goblin King. I want to read a little bit about what Tolkien says here. He says, "There in the shadows on a large flat stone sat a tremendous goblin with a huge head, and armed goblins were standing round him, carrying the axes and the bent swords that they use. Now goblins are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted. They make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones. They can tunnel and mine as well as any but the most skilled dwarves when they take the trouble, though they are usually untidy and dirty. Hammers, axes, swords, daggers, pickaxes, tongs, and all instruments of torture they make very well, or get other people to make to their design, prisoners and slaves that have to work till they die for want of air and light. It is not unlikely that they invented some of the machines that have since troubled the world, especially the ingenious devices for killing large numbers of people at once, for wheels and engines and explosions always delighted them, and also not working with their own hands more than they could help. But in those days and those wild parts, they had not advanced, as it is called, so far." This might be my favorite passage in the book so far that we've got. Not the whole book, but that we've gotten to.
The detail of they don't want to actually build it themselves, but that they're not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much packed in there. You're getting a glimpse of what the future is going to be like.
Yeah.
You're getting a glimpse of how evil, but also how lazy they can be. There's so much packed in there. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, this is we think of this a lot in our world. Anna and I were talking about this recently as we kind of prepare for a new school year, and especially for people like me who work in classical schools that like many old things, and we're probably the people that are a little bit more troubled by newer things. One of the conversations we've been having is all of a sudden Microsoft Copilot is now in every device that we like. It just got up as we go back. We use Microsoft Teams and stuff, and so all of a sudden Copilot's just there.
Yeah.
And one of the conversations that's come up is just how much efficiency seems to have somehow in the last 150 years has become a virtue. I was actually looking through some of Aquinas's work that he did on virtues and virtuous living and how do we acquire virtues. And doing this, looking at a lot of the different kind of ways in which you talk about all different, there's so many different people that have different, okay, there's this many virtues, there's this many kind of a deal, but there's many that are just agreed upon, right, in the Western tradition. But efficiency is one that I really think nobody would have said is a virtue, not like temperance or courage or something like that. No one's like efficiency, but it really feels like the all-encompassing virtue of modernity has been efficiency. And that's what Tolkien gives us here, right? He tells us, and literally what he says at the end, they're not that advanced, as it's called, saying, what it really means to be advanced is to be able to do all these things, right? They really love being able to not working with their own hands more than they could help. Well, what is again, this is not me ragging on all technology for being evil. You're sitting across from me I don't know what you do, but you do stuff with typing and computers and code and stuff, but I'm just kidding. Only kind of. And I know more about what you do, but if you were to be like, I don't know what your job looks like on an hourly basis when you're not talking to other people, but I know you do a lot more management stuff now.
Yeah.
But like when you were talking like, well, I learned this new like code, I'd be like, I've heard of Java and that's it. And then you were telling me that you got a C+ at work, and I was like, I didn't know you guys have grades. This is wild that you're doing that over there with your coding. Your boss like, you did C+ today.
It's C++.
Usually most people call it B-, but okay, that's fine.
And we don't do C++.
But in all of so much modern technology, what is everything about but making things more efficient, doing less work where we used to have to do more work. And yet Tolkien is saying That is what the goblins love.
There's a part toward the beginning where he says they make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones.
That's right.
And I think that to me is the big difference.
It's all utility.
Yeah.
Right? It actually think about Tolkien as someone who loves let's pick on medieval architecture, right? So it's a great place to think about. So many famous Gothic churches have flying buttresses. Are you familiar? Do you know what a flying buttress is, right? You know what these are.
We were talking to someone who was an architecture student, and we both came at him hard with the flying buttress comment, because that's the only thing it's the Fertile Crescent, flying buttress, the Holocaust, and then modern times. Those are the things that people remember from
history. I was like, what are these things you're just like randomly naming? That's like that. Well, so it's funny because you think about flying buttresses, which I believe come about in, maybe beginning in the 12th century. So the Gothic period, obviously. And you have these things which are legitimately supports to keep a cathedral from falling over. Mm-hmm. But think about, just pick something like Notre Dame. Pick something really, really famous that everybody can picture in their head right now. Or think about cathedral much later built, but like the National Cathedral here in America, which is built later, but is built in that same kind of movement. Same kind of design, I should say. I don't know if that's the right architectural word, but style, that's the right one. There it is. And those flying buttresses are still, there's a beauty towards them. Like, they are more extraordinary. They are more exquisite than they actually need to be. Like, there's a step above utility that brings something beautiful, right? And so much of the way in which we design things now is about like the bare minimums, right? Like, we don't want to spend superfluously on things, and yet there's actually this like beauty, and Tolkien's getting to it here that, well, and again, this is not Tolkien saying be extravagant in everything you do, but extravagance is something that actually might be necessary. It might be that when we're focusing only on the things that are clever, the things that are just only useful, that we're actually missing out on something else. And in fact, I came across a book that I actually just picked up. It's by Joseph Pierce, who wrote, I think he was the one who wrote Further Up and Further In, was his Narnia book we went to quite a bit throughout our time in those books. He has a book called Bilbo's Journey, Discovering the Hidden Meaning of the Hobbit. And he has a chapter called The Cleverness of Orcs. And here's what he has to say about some of what we've just read. I want to read about a paragraph from this chapter, because what you and I are talking about has a lot to do with this. There is much of Tolkien's own philosophy embedded in the narrator's evident disdain for the goblins, which must be understood if we are to understand his work. For Tolkien, echoing the view of the great Greek philosophers, the good, the true, and the beautiful are inextricably interwoven. In Christian terms, their unity and inseparability is itself a reflection of the Trinity, who is the source of all goodness, truth, and beauty. This being so, those who are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted will not make good, true, or beautiful things. The fact that goblins make clever things indicates that intelligence is not a guarantor of goodness, nor is it necessarily a means of finding the truth. Intelligence can be used in the service of cruelty or wickedness, or in the weaving of lies, or in the service of a host of other sins. In the absence of virtue and wisdom, intelligence becomes a servant of evil. It is poisoned. The fact that goblins don't like working with their hands more than they can help illustrates their preference for technology and its labor-saving devices over the traditional craftsmanship that takes delight in the work of the hands and its products. Compare the goblins' dislike of craftsmanship and art with the delight that elves, hobbits, and dwarves take in such things. Finally, the sardonic irony of the parenthetical comment on so-called advanced society indicates Tolkien's skepticism about the benefits of technological progress.
I've thought about this a lot with writing. You're now able, with some of the AI stuff we've talked about, you're able to generate volumes of stuff with a few commands, and it sounds pretty close. And you can also take large amounts of text and summarize it. And I think we're in danger of writing a few prompts, spitting out this large thing, sending it to someone, and then they're highlighting it and summarizing it.
Yeah.
And turning it back into something small and readable. And to me, the reason that you and I don't do this, we're tempted by it, but we don't do this with our chapter summaries or with the other writing that we do in relation to
Or a
this.
script that
Sure.
we're reading off of right now.
Yeah,
That's
point
AI.
by point.
But beside
like,
that,
it
yeah.
says Daniel interrupts very gently to meta reference. To me, the process of writing is the whole point. It's the thinking and the refining and editing. And I think there's a possibility that if you truly cannot start to get something on the page and then react to it, maybe that is something to do in certain cases. But for the most part, to me, it's the process of trying to distill a thought into, like, how do you take a chapter and distill it into 150 words or less? What are you trying to communicate? How do you choose what those main moments are without necessarily being derivative or repetitive of what someone else has done?
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
what you just said is so unique to, I think, the way many people, and that's not you have some insight, you're so smart. I mean, you're a smart guy, but like you said, it's about, with writing, it's about the process. But for many people, the way that we have, and this is not like some conspiracy theory, like it was done on purpose to get us, right? It's downstream of philosophical movements and the way in which we understand the world over the last few centuries. For most people, what modern education has taught them is that it is about the end result. Like, that's how you get the grade. That's how you write your college essay to get into college. You don't do it to build virtue or to become a better writer. You do it so you get into college, right? You do it so you get and so again, that's not some conspiracy theory. Oh, like everyone was doing this. It's not me as a classical educator, poo-pooing all of modern education simply because it does this. But what it did build to was everything is for an ends, right? There's an ends to everything. Whereas if you just heard what Pierce had to say, even about craftsmanship, think about like the creating of something with your own hands. Think about people who make handmade things still, when they could have much easily use a machine or something else. Like, there is a beauty in actually not being efficient. And what the belief is, if someone's going to make something by hand, is that there's actually something intangible occurring within that person. Like, they're finding beauty and joy in the creation of this. When you talk about writing, you're exactly right that writing is something that has some kind of intangible, we actually believe has a metaphysical, right, reality to it. Right? Our God, the way he has chosen to reveal himself is through what? Through words, right? Through the word. And so we believe that actually the use of language is incredibly important and has these kind of metaphysical, again, I wouldn't say powers to it, but some kind of transcendence, right? Which, like, taking, like, I'm not saying there's never a time to use ChatGPT or something like that, but if that's the only thing you're using, you're cutting yourself off of something that is actually life-giving.
Yeah.
I mean, but you say it so nonchalantly, as if it's axiomatic, but it's something that I think for many of us, if we're not thinking about it, it just becomes, well, this is faster and efficiency rules the day. And what Tolkien is saying is, like, that's how you turn into a goblin. Part of the reason why I read that letter by Tolkien, and you and I did not necessarily prepare exactly. I mean, we prepare for the podcast, but we don't know exactly where we're going to go, was this one line that I didn't know if it would have time for us to come back to it, because we're not going to spend a lot of time with goblins in this book. But he says that orcs or goblins are corruptions. And if you do know a little bit about the history of Middle-earth, That Tolkien kind of throughout his life as a writer never really quite settles on where orcs come from. There's a couple of different places, and throughout his own life, the idea of where they come from, are they corrupted elves? Was there something that Melkor did? What was something of their own doing? They kind of are all over the place, but the one thing that does remain clear is the orcs are always corrupted of some kind. They weren't created evil. They became corrupted. And so part of Tolkien in this paragraph or two that we've read through here about the cleverness of the goblins is like a warning to us in a way, right? And where you and I might not be quite as anti-technology as Tolkien is. Like Tolkien is not, he's not shy about how he feels.
Yeah.
Remember, did I say when we covered on fairy stories, doesn't he say like both cars and street lamps are temporary bothersome things? Like they'll both be gone eventually. Like we'll get over these street lamps,
Yeah. I think we're seeing this happening with how available everything is.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm overwhelmed by how much is available. And I've actually started making choices that will limit how much is available. So I don't currently have any streaming services. And I'm buying the one thing I want to watch.
Yeah.
And it scopes it so tightly. And there's still options within that. I still have the previous things that I bought. But I get overwhelmed by just how many choices there are. I think the closest word is guilty for I have access to every album on Spotify.
Except Garth Brooks.
Except Garth Brooks, which is funny because I've bought 10 Garth Brooks CDs for my wife in the past 6 months. Yeah.
Wait, you have Walmart, right? And then you have like an exclusive deal with Walmart.
Even better, I'm going to Goodwill and I'm getting each one for $1.
That's great. That's so good.
I've been buying small amounts of physical media because it's kind of nice to have this thing that I have access to this.
Yeah.
Let's say the internet goes out. It's about as far as I'll get with prepping. Like I think we have 1 can of beans. So like we would probably run out of food before we could watch anything, but it's the idea of like if we do have internet trouble for a couple of days,
you have something to do.
It would force us to watch like these handful of movies that we actually have. But I realized that with Spotify, I'm like, oh, I have all this access and I'm listening to the Hamilton soundtrack for like the millionth time. Like, could I have just bought that and listened to it? But, and I'm 300 albums in. I am listening to an album from the 1001 Albums to Hear Before You Die book, just so that I'll experience something else besides the same music. Yeah. So like that's a way of it actually being a benefit. But for the most part, I'm overwhelmed by how much access we have. Compared to when you and I were in high school and you had to pay $10 for the album, which was a discount.
Like we thought we had access to everything in 2005 when we had iTunes.
Yeah.
But we had no idea what would happen literally like 7 years later.
Yeah.
Was like, you have all that now, it's just free.
Yeah. Well, it's almost free. Like you still pay for it and you.
Yeah, but it's there. It's all there.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so available. Digital things are just infinitely copyable. You can. I have a friend who handed me probably the equivalent of $1,000 worth of movies because he was going to take them down the street and donate them to like a free library thing. But he just gave them to me because he doesn't need them anymore. Yeah. He said that instead of getting up on the couch and reaching for the top shelf,
just click it instead.
And pulling a DVD down, he can click a button and watch it in probably slightly better quality.
So this is what Tolkien is worried about.
But that's what I'm getting to is like we have everything is supposed to be better, and I don't enjoy it as much because you can turn something on and watch it and 10 minutes later decide that you don't like it and then go watch something else.
Yeah.
And you can keep flipping around and stuff. And I'm not, I use this in an intentionally exaggerated way. It's miserable. It's miserable to have all this extra stuff and to be able to flip around. You used to be able to you would make a choice and you would drive home with that choice.
Oh yeah, like when you went to
put it in the
Blockbuster,
player.
you were stuck with that movie, so
Yeah.
you knew.
And I agonized for 45 minutes in Blockbuster because
You're like, I better watch this whole
is
movie.
$8.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pay $8, and it's a deal.
Do you know what I did the other night? Here's what I did. The other night, Anna was at book club, and I was like, it had been a long day at work, and I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sit down. I'll put the kids to bed. I'm gonna watch TV. Do you know what I did? I watched 10 minutes of 2 different Star Trek episodes and 45 minutes of a James Bond movie. Like that was a single movie I could have watched, and I just did those things instead. Yeah. And Anna got home, and she was like, "Why are you bummed? You look like you had a great night. You got to sit, on the couch and watch television." I was like, I was like, I started watching one episode of Star Trek, and I was like, oh, but I could be watching this one instead. Yep. So then I turned that on. I was like, oh, but I did say I wanted to watch this. It was on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I was like, I wanted to watch that. So I watched a little bit of that too, and I just in the back of there's the thing always, I could be doing this. I think Tolkien wants us, and where he's wiser than you and I are, because I'm simply trusting that my own love of efficiency is hollow. Like there's something missing there. Tolkien actually, and this is, maybe we'll spend more time this season unpacking this idea, seems to have a better answer for why, like why it's shallow in a way, or why it isn't. And I mean this seriously, like why it isn't life-giving. There's something about that. Like, and here's how it's silly it is in the world where we live in, where I can pretty much ship anything to my house in 24 hours, just about. I thought Amazon used to do 2 days, but now it's like 1 day. Everything is Prime like 1 day. Mm-hmm. I actually deleted Amazon off my phone because I was like, I just actually like need to not have the ability to have anything in the world at my house
in a day.
Yeah. It's like, but see, here's where and this is why I'm not sitting here some wise old 33-year-old. Like I figured out life. No, not at all. Like,
we're both actively struggling with it.
No, but it's also something. I don't even know why, but something about that just feels wrong in my gut. Like this isn't the way it's meant. It's supposed to be. This isn't. There's something that feels dehumanizing, and I'm not sure. This is people wonder why. I hope we're talking about the Hobbit. How did we get into this conversation? We think that stories like this humanize us. That's why they're the books that we read to our children over and over and over again. And not just multiple times in their own lifetime, but we pass them on from generation to generation. We think stories like this humanize us. That's what Tolkien is saying on fairy stories. It's what MacDonald was saying in the imaginative, the fantastic imagination. And what it does, it kind of brings something up inside of us, like we're saying now, where it's like, what does it? It's asking us to really ponder, what does it mean to be human? And a fantasy story like this, where we have actually no humans in the entire story. There's no men in the story, right? No race of men, like we'll get in some of the other Tolkien stuff. But it is very clear who the people are who are more humanized, the dwarves, the hobbits, even Gandalf, versus these goblins. And I feel like there's many temptations for me in our modern world to become more goblinized.
So if you're listening to this with the silences removed, so that you can consume more content.
All right, let's get back. Let's get back to the Great Goblin. So, where we last read from Tolkien, we had come up to the Great Goblin, but now he actually speaks to our heroes here, and he asks who they are, and we actually figure out that Thorin really must be known quite well because he gives his name as Thorin the dwarf at your service. And the Great Goblin, he actually responds that he knows who Thorin Oakenshield and his folk are. He's like, look, I'm not going to believe any story that you're just off visiting. Right? Like, that's clearly not true. You're elf friends, you're murderers. And in fact, we, as Thorin is trying to say, no, we're just kind of, we got lost in the mountains, which is the half-truth, right? Mm-hmm. They then bring forward his sword, right? His sword, right, is Orcus, the goblin cleaver. which again we talked about being from Gondolin, means it's been around for centuries upon centuries, and the goblins know it as. Do you remember the name?
Orcrist.
No, that's what do they call it?
Biter.
Biter, right? All of this happens, and the lights go out. As they've been given this order for execution, Gandalf reappears, though he's not named at first here, and a sword goes through the Great Goblin. What else happens here?
He lights up his wand again.
The one.
And I love how Gandalf is introduced. It says, then Gandalf lit up his wand. Of course it was Gandalf. But they were too busy at the moment to figure out.
Yeah, and he comes in
appeared.
and he starts bringing it. So everybody's kind of following him, and a little bit of a chase ensues. We've skipped over some of this stuff because it happens. It does happen so quickly. They're brought before, but they think they're about to go die. Gandalf makes all the lights go out, and then he attacks, and that's enough confusion for the dwarves to get free.
And he counts them very quickly. Gets to 13. Then sees Mr. Baggins 14. And then they keep going, but then they're pursued by
The goblins.
swifter goblins.
That's right. Well, what's interesting about this, and I believe this comes up in the Lord of the Rings too, is that dwarves are very good sprinters. Mm-hmm. We see that too in book 3 of Lord of the Rings with the 3 hunters, right? Where Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli just like sprint for I don't know how many days to try to, find the Uruk-hai who have Merry and Pippin, and they go all the way to Fangorn. And the dwarves here seem to be quite swift of foot, which is always funny because you just think dwarves are not. They're usually like pretty heavier, right? They're not going to have long legs, but they can go along at a tremendous pace, is what Tolkien says. But the goblins dug the tunnels, right? And they can see a lot better in the dark.
And I love that they choose the swiftest of them. Mm-hmm. I'm so curious what that looked like. Okay, who here's quick again? Okay, you're not quick.
You're actually not invited.
You're gonna stay behind.
Here's what's interesting is that, and Corey Olson, I think, is the one who brings this up. I don't have his book in front of me. I think it's at my office at work. But is it over? Oh, you're looking at the shelf like it might be over there. I was like, if it was, that'd be great. But
I was trying to think what it would be like to have my own office outside of the house.
You do have an office. It's just another bedroom in your home.
Right.
So Olson, I think, Dr. Olson brings up this thing that, right now, Thorin is in many ways in his company are kind of going back to the dragon to try to avenge the death of, all of their people. And in fact, some of their frustration with the goblins and these orcs are the fact that Azog killed Thorin's grandfather. Right? We'd learn more about that in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings. And so they have this kind of animosity, this vengeance. Well, and again, this is not to be like, oh, the goblins are actually the good guys. But the dwarves did just kill their king, mm-hmm. and now they're seeking vengeance. They they came in, they killed the king, and now these goblins are chasing after them. In some ways, kind of paralleling what the dwarves themselves are wanting to do.
Yeah.
A question I have for you. And I don't think Tolkien is, again, trying to do this. This is not the Cruella kind of prequel mm-hmm. thing. But how much of this do you think should have us asking the question of, to what extent is the dwarves' quest a good quest, like a virtuous quest, a worthy quest?
From what I have read just now, I'm really not sure how much of it is virtuous. It seems like it's very much financially driven.
A lot of money involved.
A lot of money involved, and a lot of glory, riches, excitement, adventure.
And then let's get back at the dragon
revenge.
Yeah. What would be the positive way to read it? The one thing I've been thinking, okay, to read this in a positive light, they're seeking to right a wrong, right? They're fighting against the injustice of the dragon coming in, right?
Yeah. Fighting against greed.
Fighting against greed by
By being greedy.
By being greedy. Okay, that one's interesting. But no, I mean, no, that's true. I think this in some ways has always made this so intriguing to me because when Frodo sets out both in chapter 2 of book 1 and he's leaving the Bag End, just, him and Sam and then Pippin, I guess those are the 3 that go, right? And also when Frodo sets out with the Fellowship from Rivendell, in both of those, it's a very noble quest. Like, it is in many ways, like, Frodo is not going to... when he leaves Bag End, and he thinks he's only taking the ring to Rivendell at that point, right? He thinks he's still never coming back to Bag End again, and he buys the house in Crick Hollow. Mm-hmm. Well, when he leaves Rivendell, he's like, I'm going to die. Like, there's no way this is going to work out. And there's no more noble of a quest, right? We're going to do this to save all of the world. Mm-hmm. But again, these dwarves are like, we're going to get rich and also revenge at the same time, and we're going to become super famous.
Yeah. I do think that a lot of things can start that way, and with proper guidance can end in a
both of our
way.
Marriages, right?
Like, we did it for
rich, glory. Like, this is very, this is gonna be great.
Do it for the glory.
Yeah. Our wives had the more noble, like, I'm gonna, entrance into marriage, marrying us. They're like, oh,
fix these
that's
guys
sacrificial.
Up.
Like, I'll help these poor men.
These poor guys. Sometimes by making sure that they drink more than 6 ounces of
water. My wife is trying to help me be more hydrated. That is true.
For example, from a career standpoint, I got into coding and software development because I wanted to make more money. That was a big part of the initial push. There was
me in education, same thing.
Yeah. But there was another piece of it was I was bored at my job at the time, and I wanted to do something that was more engaging. And it was both. I wanted to do something more engaging that was harder so that I could earn more money. And I saw how easy it was to replace people at a lower level. Mm-hmm. They would just bring someone in, they would train in a few weeks, and then that's why I wasn't getting a raise.
Yeah.
Because it was so easy that I could leave and they could just fill in that spot. But what I didn't expect was, it's actually incredibly engaging work, and it provides an opportunity for me to teach other people, which I don't think I could do what you do. Being in a classroom, keeping kids engaged, and you don't have to do it as much, but there is an element of discipline and classroom management and behavioral things that you have to deal with. And then I definitely don't think I could do the grad school and administrative stuff that you're now on that track. But I do like teaching, and I like learning something the hard way. And I've had some people who are really frustrating. They were so frustrating to learn from because they were the only people that I had access to, and they were just really hard to get the information out of. Mm-hmm. And I've decided I want to do that differently. And I go through and I learn something, and then I turn around and I try to distill it into how can I teach this to someone without making them feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
Or without making them feel like I don't care about them or I don't care about spending time on them. And there are many other benefits. Another one is I see technology careers in particular as a path forward for a lot of people who are coming from lower income backgrounds. Mm-hmm. This can be a ticket toward a higher income.
Yeah, more financial freedom.
Which you can take back and like provide for family, but also be an example for other people who are not as privileged as someone like I am, someone like me. But it started out from I wanted more money type place. And I a little bit see that here in The Hobbit. They're starting out with, we want glory and riches. What did they end up doing? They end up providing Bilbo access to the ring. I feel like there's a greater force at work.
Oh, very much.
Guiding, like using this group to both get him there and get him back. And then that will have a later impact on Frodo.
Oh, that's really well said. And I think, your example is so good. And What I certainly don't want it to sound like, and I don't think you think this, but I don't want it to sound like I'm thinking, oh, if it's not for all the best reasons, then the quest is. And boy, I like the fact that the quest is like, God, it's like got a bunch of different kind of reasons. It isn't just the kind
It
of
feels very real because
it has those elements, and we know that not just is kind of Iluvatar's the providence, right, of Eru Iluvatar going to lead to Bilbo finding the ring and then it being destroyed and bringing this
balance to the Force.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But also, like, what even occurs at the Lonely Mountain, right? Like, they are able to defeat the dragon, and they are able to restore Dale, right, to some of its former glory. They are like these good things do happen, and there is this kind of righting of the injustice that was done generations ago. But it has all of these things, and you got to think that at any given time, that's not what Bomber's thinking about, or Bofer, or Biffer, or like maybe that's not how it is all the time. And Thorin, certainly, we see what happens to Thorin once he gets there with the dragon sickness, right? So I find this to be many of the things you've kind of bookend, I guess, our episode today. You talked about at the beginning of the show, just some of like how fun, you didn't use the word simple, but like, there's like, it's got this like simple elements to it. It's got all this, and that's true. And yet kind of, there also is this more complex motivations. And really we don't like, we're not going to get there and like really get a great, monologue from, Glowin. It's just like, here's exactly what I was thinking this whole time.
Yeah.
Just kind of left. Like we get Thorns a little bit where if more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it'd be merrier world. Spoiler alert for the end of the book. But other than that, we don't really get much. And so I kind of love the fact that it's kind of like McDonald did a little bit. There are these kind of fairy story, maybe what Tolkien wants to say, kind of trappings that don't need explanations to them. Well, any final thing for this chapter, Phil? Bilbo falls off of, again, I've already forgotten, Ori Nori Glory. That's not even one of the guys' names.
But why male model? Are you freaking kidding me? I just told you.
Falls off one of the backs. Dory's back and is unconscious. He's going to wake up and meet a new friend in our next chapter. But any final things you want to say about this particular chapter?
One, I love that it's not an allegory, and that it also isn't just these pure, okay, we're going to go do the right thing. Mm-hmm. I know it's more complex than that. But I also love that it's not obvious what those reasons are. We don't have all, and that would be exhausting to have all 12 characters say, well, the reason I'm going
like, on this why don't we know every dwarf's motivation?
Yeah.
You think Tolkien did in the back of his mind?
Yeah.
See, I don't know. Here's my question. I don't know.
Not at this point, though.
No, I think with the Hobbit, he's like, just throw a bunch of names in there.
Yeah. I think he then spent years and years developing all that. Yeah. So I actually appreciate that we don't know that, but we can extrapolate from what we see. Like the fact that they're going, the fact that they're putting up with some pretty dire circumstances for the potential of riches or death.
That's great.
That's why we podcast.
That's why we do it for. I mean, that's what we got into this thing. That's why we were like, look, we do this long enough, we'll open a Patreon.
I was hoping that maybe I'd marry one of the guests.
This is right.
Check.
It'll fund Daniel's book purchases. We keep extending.
I was gonna say, you were acting all noble about not using the podcast money, but
well, I think as the podcast goes on, what kind of book constitutes a podcast necessity has grown. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, all kinds of books are research, or they help me grow as a reader. And so all of a sudden, books that, maybe originally weren't more podcasty books become more of like, oops, I think the podcast credit card slipped. Then I'm just kidding. Kind of. Why don't Phil? So next time we're going to be back. Oh my goodness. Chapter 5. We went a little long with this episode, but I have a feeling that with this episode and the next, Riddles in the Dark, we are going to be a little bit longer than our usual hour or so together, because in the next chapter, deep inside the Misty Mountains, Bilbo plays a game of riddles with a mysterious creature. It's going to be so fun.
Looking forward to that.
Well, why don't you go ahead and close us out? What a great time we've had together.
This has been fun. This episode is made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support the show, you too can then listen to a bonus episode each month along with other rewards. Special thanks goes to John Marr, Emily Wakefield, Ryan Smith, Andrew Trophy, Becca Brown, Christiana Line, and Ian Wooten for supporting us at our top tiers. Listener feedback can be sent to hello@lampostlistener.com, and voicemails can be left at 406-646-6733. You can also find links, episodes, and book information at lampostlistener.com. A review on Apple Podcasts would also be appreciated. This helps other listeners find the show and join our read-through. Thanks for coming along on this journey, and we will be back soon.